Sure.
Well, the comic on James Connolly was a little bit insightful. So yeah, I was a bit surprised he got executed.
Mm.
It didn't quite detail. I'm not too sure what were the circumstances of his capture during that fight in Ireland. I don't think the comic sort of specified, but he must have been captured in a state of injury. So put him in the chair before they shot him.
Mm. Yeah. Did you know much about him? I certainly didn't know much about him before I read this.
I've probably seen the name somewhere else. He might have come up somewhere else in the comics, in the comic group at an earlier phase. I'm not too sure.
Obviously, a very significant figure.
Yeah, well, I'm amazed that they still launched the revolt, even though they had failed to gain the arms shipment from Germany. And
Yeah.
what's the point of launching a revolt when you don't have the amount of guns you needed?
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just got to pull yourself up and think, yeah, well, give this one a miss. Sort of interesting in the development of his life, you know. So he was uh, lived in, you know, the grew up in the late 19th century. You know, got married. Was a typical Irishman, and now, of course, he was complaining about the poverty, which is interesting because the very era he was living in was a time when, relatively speaking, uh, people were actually starting to be better off according to the economic history. It was far worse before his era. I'm not sure if all the benefits spread as well to Ireland. Uh, but for example, you know, according to the history I've come across, it the amount of food people were eating was vastly improving. Like common people were eating a meal of meat and vegetables, often once a day, which had been a rich or a middle class meal before that era. So, okay, yeah, yeah. So, you know, his period of youth was back in the 1880s, and this is when technology was starting to show quite some strength. This was the era of the newspapers, of course. They created the suburban press, and so you could run off newspapers in special editions very rapidly and spread them all over the city. You know, this is the area, this was the era when you could stand at the railway station and there would be a kiosk there with magazines or newspapers or something like that. This was like light years away from the 1840s period of Charles Dickens. The change was tremendous during this period. People think the change might be great now, but what we're experiencing now is peanuts to what people experienced between, say, 1850 and 1950.
Yeah.
So I got workers of the world. So when he went over to the US and became involved in with them. So we've done the Wobblies before
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was just going to mention that.
on a couple of occasions. Actually, we've come across the Wobblies, haven't we?
Well, it's hard to avoid that era if you're going to cover that era. It was you get a lot of the same names, a lot of the same figures. Big Bill Haywood, all those guys.
I mean, they'd gone from an era when common people were probably relying on porridge. And this is an interesting thing. The working class got more, and when they got more, they expected more again. So getting more gave them the extra energy to demand more. Perhaps this was because it was also an information age. As I said, the newspaper, the suburban newspaper, had been created in the 1880s. Of course, famously we have the story of Citizen Kane, which generates from that sort of period.
Yeah.
Oh, the blockhead, right.
Yeah. Right. Mr. Blackhead, remember that? Yeah.
I'll work for half pay so the boss won't hire a woman or a kid.
Yeah. Uh, the other one was the Studs Terkel book we did earlier this year. Remember the Studs Terkel working?
Name rings a bell, yes, Studs
We just
Terkel.
we just did that a few months ago.
Yeah, well, trouble is that I sort of am into a few different things, and
Yeah.
all
No,
of these things take up Studs Terkel.
nope, no problem.
Uh, what was that about? Was that something about an asylum, was it?
No, that was 10 Days in a Madhouse.
All right. Okay.
Nellie Bly. No, I'm talking about the Studs Terkel's working, where he interviewed various uh, blue collar workers and got their stories and presented them.
Okay, right. Yeah, it sort of rings a bell.
But
Okay,
there, yeah,
town minimum wage law, $4.50 per day. What era was this in? This is probably about getting towards World War One, is it? So it used to be $1 a day in the late 19th century era. In the a fairly ordinary job would probably get about $6 a week.
yeah,
Uh, like a top line cowboy would earn about $20 a week. A Clint Eastwood type dude was $20 a week while they were employed. Whereas an ordinary trail hand might get $10 a week.
yeah,
Well, there you are, the train which made things so different in that period. Uh, it's probably originally it was as expensive as air travel was 50 years ago. Now air travel's cheap.
mhm, mhm.
Well, all I can say is a character like that, the thorough cheek of the working class, not knowing its place in the world. It's amazing, of course, that the Irish broke away, ultimately succeeded in the later revolution. That's the British Empire was in trouble.
Yeah, yeah,
One of the sources of trouble was that throughout their empire, they didn't really have any great oil production areas. That was the strength of the United States. The United States was the world's big exporter of oil. It
right, right.
was probably the primary thing that made America powerful. Even in World War II, I had a guess, probably 75% of the world's oil was probably coming from the US in World War II.
Yeah, well, we did the book covering the history of America's oil industry. Remember that one?
Ah,
Best of enemies.
okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you had the oil men, right? The big uh the big men in capitalism, which is slightly better than what we have today, because we now have faceless capitalism, corporate capitalism. There's not even a single guy there anymore to complain to, except I don't know, maybe Elon Musk is one of the last of Ayn Rand's heroes. The dinosaur waiting to be assassinated, as far as some are concerned. There was this, great suppression of the working class, but one of the problems was their ethnicity was very similar. So they had a ethnic sympathy with each other. And of course, in the modern era, quite cleverly, they've imported vast amounts of people around the world to make sure there isn't that ready unity in the working class anymore. I realise I think different when I think in Irish.
I was just about to point to that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I know one language.
Yeah, it is different. You
Well,
think you think about things differently. Yeah.
they make the big issue with German if you want to study philosophy, if you can learn to speak German, and then
Yeah.
I suppose a new world opens up.
Yeah, that's why Hegel and Heidegger and Nietzsche are also horribly difficult to understand because we're reading them in English. And then some things cannot be translated into English. That's why they're so difficult because we're getting it wrong because you can't say it in English. But the thing about Irish, if you notice about Irish, they think about it differently. Like if we're tired in English, what do we say? We say, I'm tired, or we say, I've gotten tired. But in Irish, the way their language is and the way they think about it, what would an Irish speaker say? They would say, a great weariness has come upon me. See,
Okay.
it's something that's happening to you. It's like you're the passive recipient of something that happens to you instead of you doing something. In English, it's very active. In English, it's I'm tired, I'm getting tired. But in
Yeah,
Irish, weariness has come upon me. Like there's weariness out there, it's come upon you. And that's just a different way of thinking about the world, and it's embedded, it's baked into the language, and it's baked into the way you think about the world.
English is very terse. I
Hmm.
think I was looking up the expression in Yorkshire, for example, a Yorkshireman would say, I have a mind to punch you in the face.
Right.
Whereas, a Southern Englishman with that terse would say, I'm going to punch you in the face, or I feel like punching you in the face.
Yeah.
But the Yorkshireman says, I have a mind. I'm in a state of mind.
Yeah. As Yeats said about English, the language of shopkeepers.
Okay, is that where they went wrong? They're merchants.
Well, it's a very utilitarian language. It's a very exacting language.
Well, the merchants have taken over, haven't they? They're in
Right.
politics now.
Yeah.
This is people who are in politics now have a degree in business studies. I was looking up JFK, and he was like, he excelled in history, grammar, literature, and you had, whether you liked him or not, a great leader. Today, they taught business school, office politics. They were, this was a guy called, you ever heard of a guy called his current, Emmanuel Todd?
No.
He's on the French philosopher. He's on the speaking circuit, and he claimed, he's taught with a whole load of Western politicians, and the shocking discovery is virtually all of them know nothing about history. We our whole Western leadership is ignorant. So it's the blind leading the blind. Whereas in ancient Greece, it was the sighted leading the blind. Not always, but most of the time. The Easter uprising is cancelled. We'll seize buildings. This is the crackpot revolution. Yeah, they think they can go and seize a building, and well, I mean, you need a real army, and you need people that know how to run things for starters. And obviously, they've got no real army, and they don't have much of a clue how to run things. Of course, the British were actually offering them concessions anyway. They were willing to offer them a separate parliament, which was maybe that was a more practical course, but they wanted complete independence. But this is something that these nations had. They had a strong sense of ethnic identity. They would support each other greatly. We've lost that now. In a sense, you're living in a culture where people in a small way still regarded each other as family, the common sense of values and beliefs, and probably conditioned by Christianity. Connolly was carried to Killerham jail. Doesn't mention his injury though, does it? What brought about his condition?
Yeah, I might have missed that.
Yeah, there he is. He's in bed. He's suffering from some injury. Now it says he gave up. He surrendered. When James Connolly surrendered, he was brought to Dublin Castle, not Kilmainham jail. He was awoken at 11 p.m. May the 11th and told he was going to be executed in the morning. Lily and Nora were brought to him. 2 hours later, they sat by his bed. Well, this is quite significant. Again, this is a very strong family feeling that people had then. They're going to execute him, but they're not going to tell his family to stay away. They grant his family a last moment with him.
Yeah.
Whereas today, you wonder that we might be heading for a world which doesn't give a stiff about the individual. Hegel's that son of Beelzebub, Hegel, will finally have worked his magic and turned us all into numbers. Oh, well, that's the way to go, tied to a chair. The, that method, though, was used on healthy people in some cases. I know there was an Australian serviceman in the Boer War who famously was executed for crimes against humanity, sort of thing. And some say he was just basically a scapegoat, but it seems they tied him to a chair along with his close supporters. The Rising started thing. So yeah, it has a few of his articles. I didn't find them that convincing. They're very sort of idealistic, and this was typical. This is in that age, and we still suffer from it in a way. But they were intensely idealistic. They believe I've got an idea, it's the reality, and that could work a bit back then. And today we're facing even more difficulty in that regard.
Okay.
Well, C.L. James, I was okay. Said a little bit about him. Some, odd-looking cartoon work.
Want to talk about that one extensively or no?
Oh, well, you can flip through it.
Okay.
I mean,
Mm, I can't find it immediately. Could you could share your screen on it?
okay, let's see if I can put it up. Uh, oh, right, it's on PDF.
Oh, there it is. I found
Oh, okay.
it. Forgot the name of it. There we go. CLR James.
Okay, a black boy brought up in the British tradition. Also, he's from a bit British colony in the Caribbean somewhere, I gather.
Trinidad.
Oh, okay, yeah, big name. Oh, well, okay, I suppose it's a sort of a romantic atmosphere in a sense, as shows that picture of a tumble down street that would have been rather exciting and pleasant for a kid, I suppose. Shades of voodoo.
Mm, yeah.
Okay, I suppose it still had a lot of black workers in the sugar industry.
Yeah, remember what Carolyn said? I don't like reading history. I don't like reading sad things. That's all history is.
A tragedy.
Just tragedy after wars and bloodshed.
So the English introduced cricket as a form of social control.
Really.
It's an interesting idea. That could be right.
Bread and circuses.
Okay, this is interesting. Vanity Fair, which I have read. I've actually got a copy of. Supposedly, I think it was my great grandmother was some sort of distant relative of Thackeray.
Hmm. Right. Cool. Cool.
Okay, he's a reader. Boy's Own.
I remember when I was a kid and reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams,
Yeah.
where he's talking about cricket and having absolutely no idea what he's talking about.
Oh, right. Okay. I suppose baseball's a more interesting game than cricket, I suppose.
Hmm.
I think the Caribbean likes it because cricket's a game you can play when you're stoned. It's not it's not necessarily a game where you have to practice the greatest physical exertion like in baseball. You know, if you exert yourself, that's really the big thing in winning. Whereas in cricket, if you hit the ball well, you know, you're guaranteed to score a bit. And you don't have to even run excessively fast because the pitch is a lot shorter than what you have to run on baseball. So it's a game you can play when you're stoned or you're drunk, whereas baseball's just not going to work out, I imagine. Okay, lines up, gets rejected. But of course, there'd be good reason for that at the time. You know, if you have uh, you'd have to practice racial segregation. Well, the thing is, though, they did have troops of different racial backgrounds, but I think they were in I think fighting in Europe. They did have, you know, troops from colonies, but they were in their own sort of units. Okay, so we like Chaz, Calypso. Okay, morals, Constantine. That's what your teams lack. Now, the white teams say, that you believe all you read in those magazines of yours. They are no better than we. Okay. This is something they say about the Germans, of course, that the German culture was a book bound culture. And so this guy's a rather very much a bookish person. It's a great influence on him. They are no better than we. Yes, I've developed my new theory that all human beings are simply meat. Therefore, ultimately, is the other human being that much better than me? Any of them? You know, especially the liberals with their universal morality. And I say, hey, guys, that's just an opinion. I can have my own opinion. It's a funny thing, of course, the Liberals are becoming illiberal because they're developing a very rigid set of values, which is the opposite of what liberalism used to mean. Lancashire, okay. Your book is good, James. All right. We are black, not brown. We stand no chance as riders here. Come back to England with me and give it a try, right? I need the help with my cricket book. Constantine, I have ties here. Okay, having a smoke, the great tradition of the era, which you're trying to blot out now. Okay, right. So he does a play about that dude in the Haitian revolt. Okay. Yeah, I just forgot that. Under
Paul
the condition
Robeson.
that, yeah,
Didn't
who,
you learn about Paul Robeson in the Sunderland book?
I remember something like Sunderland, yeah.
Alice in Sunderland. But they
Okay,
talk
yeah,
about Paul Robeson in that, remember?
okay.
It's quite a while ago. It's like 2 years ago.
American bass baritone. Okay. Born 1898, so okay. Be firm with him, that is all. If the Negro is to be set free, he must free himself.
Remember that guy who came here who'd never heard of or knew anything about Uncle Tom's Cabin? Which I kind of,
Okay, I've never read the book myself. I'm vaguely aware of it, yeah.
well, I at least, I mean, it's such a cultural, im important book. You'd think people would know it. I was just surprised that he had no idea what that book was about or why it was so important.
Yeah, well, I know it had a big place in history. Uh,
A war was fought over that book.
it's a bit like, was a recent one from Disney. They banned uh, one of their musical movies, The Song of the South.
Yeah,
It was too much of an Uncle Tom.
yeah.
That was the who was that? That was the guy who told the Brer Rabbit tales. Yeah, I remember when I went to school. How old was I? I was about getting towards 5 years old, And before we went home, the teacher used to put on the radio was having the Brer Rabbit stories. I remember that.
Uncle Remus.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
You can still find the movie if you're really determined. It's out there. You can get it.
I remember that too. We
Yeah.
had a woman that used to come into our school and she was dressed like a mammy and she would tell us stories and Briar Rabbit was the one and she would tell them in very animated ways and with the big eyes and the big gesticulations and the it was great. The kids were just mesmerized by her. I mean, we loved her. So, yeah, they don't do that anymore, but I'll have to admit, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, all I got was a classroom radio to look at. I think it
Yeah.
was one of the, I think well, it came over that sort of loudspeaker thing that I used to have in the old days. And so somehow it must have been relayed from the school office. That was back in 1965. So that was a bit before. Oh, that's right. Yeah, radios used to be very expensive then. I think my mother paid. You got one of those little Toshiba little well, not a pocket tranny, but a bit bigger than that. The sort of a little case transistor radio.
So for me, this would only be about 10 years later that we had her come in and she was mesmerizing because I think I at the time I lived in this I don't even know where I lived, maybe Indiana. And I had never seen a black person before, I don't think. So that was pretty intense. We were all just very taken by her and we loved her. I mean, when she came in, it was like a holiday.
Yeah, well, Nordic white society is a very dry culture, very prosaic. Uh, the other cultures tend to be a lot more emotional. And that's the thing with Nordics when they say even, they look at Greeks and Italians, they say how emotional. And this is pretty much true of cultures worldwide, that the Nordic culture is just so dry and unemotional in comparison.
Yes, like you were speaking before about the language differences and how um, I thought that was really interesting. I never thought about that before, how different cultures use language in a more emotive way and some in more matter of fact ways. And it really, like German culture is very different and humor and stuff.
I was looking at that, and I was pointing out that if you go back, to that classic era of German idealism where you had all the big names like Kant and Hegel, the German culture was very book bound, very much loves reading about everything via books. I don't know about the English. I think they just collected books to look good in their library or something. Or the women liked romances. That was a classic tale. They claim that the Englishman to know something, if one to know, Englishmen want to know about lions, they get on a ship and they go to Africa and investigate the lions. The French bring the lions back to Paris and stick it in a cage, and that's their study of lions. And the Germans read a book about lions.
And what did the Australians do?
Well, I suppose they originally followed the British.
Remember what Nietzsche said about the afterlife? Nietzsche, he said, when you die, you go up and you're presented with two doors. First door is labeled paradise. The second door is labeled lecture on paradise. And he said Germans go to the lecture on paradise.
Okay, yeah, I don't know that one. That's a new one on me.
That's funny. That's a good one. It would be far too embarrassing for them to experience paradise.
I've got this friend Angelina. She's half Arab, and she was half Russian, so she spent all the time running around Russia for years. And she ended up, when things started to turn sour a few years ago, she ended up teaching in Germany, and she's so critical of what she perceives as that cold Nordic sort of demeanor and attitude. Like, and she pretty much she's criticizing uh, the Germans, uh, the English, the Scandinavians. And interestingly, like, I was just she was talking about, one of her said the worst, coldest experiences she ever had. It's very true of Northern Italy as well. And she said, when she was going around Como, near Lake Como. And of course, curiously, she said that was the worst of all, which oddly enough, yeah, that's where one of my ancestors came from, was Cerno and Como.
I was just speaking with someone today about German culture. They said they went to Germany and he said that they didn't understand his humor at all. And then he told me the joke that he told them, and I found it very not funny. And I thought, and then it dawned on me that possibly I would prefer the German culture or the English culture to American culture because of the fact that it's less emotional and more straightforward and practical. And I like those things, just practicality and efficiency. And I think that sounds good to me. I'm tired of Americans.
Rightio. Or what do you find tiring about Americans?
Right,
What?
right there with you, Amy. Right there with you.
Oh,
They
okay.
do, they're just like you said about I'm in a liberal town right now, a very liberal town, and like you said, the liberals aren't liberals. They're they're very uptight and they're very angry about anyone that doesn't see things the way that they see them. And they pretend like they're uptight and they pretend like they're liberal and they use words that say that they are like kind, be kind, and all these nice flowery words that suggest that they're all of these things, but in fact they really are not. And they're just using those words as a shield to get their way, like a classic narcissist, using emotions and flowery language to try and sway and coerce. And if you don't go along with it, they unleash a rage on you. So yeah, I'm just tired of it.
Okay, you're having a fascinating time there. You need to find yourself a new village.
Yes, I know I do, but I'm having like a failure to launch. I do need a new village. You're right.
Well, a part of our being is being social. It's what motivates us.
Yeah. I think
And
I need to go to South.
I've noticed that my problem is I've been too much of an introvert in life. And uh, and that's my problem. I'm not that social. And really, for a person to function properly, you need a peer group. The people I know tend to be a bit like me. And, no person is an island. I've realised now, you can't do everything on your own. You can't be on your own little island. You need to find a community for you, for a person to function, basically, to flourish or anything like that.
Right, because if you don't, then you will find human connection in other ways. And people will find a way. I always use the example of Ted Kaczynski because he was the ultimate hermit, but yet he still found a way to connect with other human beings. I mean, it was a weird, twisted way, but yeah, people find a way to do it. But a healthy peer group's better. See?
Let me know when you find it, Amy.
I know
I've been looking for that myself.
no, I have not found it. But I have connection at my work. I have pa passive, polite, casual conversation with strangers, and that helps me because then it's like I'm getting some connection there.
Well, I suppose famously, I remember one guy was saying, America is the only place in the world which created a pejorative for intellectuals. They called them eggheads. And so my friend said, he was an Aussie. He was very much into the British school.
What's an egghead?
Well, it's a term for an intellectual.
So like people that teach at university that
Yeah,
think they're
yeah,
intellectual.
it'd be called an egghead.
Yeah, I think that's a good name for them because their heads are pretty big, pretty inflated with themselves.
Yeah, that's a tendency I notice in a lot of people that have done a bit of academic work, and it's always a tragic story that somehow they didn't get the job. They had worked for a while and they ran into conflicts, and the world didn't go their way, and that was bad. And it's like, oh, I'm this really great academic, and the world has failed to recognise me.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of think, well, I suppose you can have a certain degree of skill as an academic, but you also need to be good at politics, and you also need to be lucky to get places. But some people the people that seem to get good positions in academia are political animals, or have some outstanding ability, really outstanding ability.
Yeah, my ex was in the university system trying to get tenure and they wouldn't give it to him. And the reason why they wouldn't put him on tenure track, and the reason why I know why, is because he didn't have that political knack. He didn't have the knack of self promotion, of that, like, that everybody else did. All these other people that he found very annoying, and I did too. And I hated going to the parties because these people just, ugh. But he wasn't, good at that. And so therefore he always stayed at the bottom of the ladder. Um, but now he's doing better because he's stuck it out and he actually has talent, and he's really smart and useful, and now they're noticing that he's an asset because of what he can accomplish and what he can do, and not because he just is a blowhard. So I'm happy for him. He's finding some success finally.
Okay, sounds interesting. So what does he do?
He oh my God, I'm scared for the future, but he is running some AI thing for the university. Oh, what is it? Chat GPT or something
Okay,
like that. Like he's doing stuff where he's figuring out plagiarism stuff and how to effectively use it and how to navigate that with the university and working with all the departments regarding it because it's a big deal and it's an ethical issue as well. So they're trying to figure it out. I'm not quite sure. He does all kinds of things too. He's in rhetoric and composition, so he does that. And yeah, the thing about the AI though, I'm like, come on, don't Terminator us. Just keep it like keep it simple. Like I get scared with AI stuff. And then I heard somebody say that AI is just plagiarizing humans. And I mentioned this to
yeah,
him, and he seemed to poo-poo that idea. And I was like, no, that's exactly what they're doing. It's AI is the plagiarist. Um,
it's a
I don't
system that's very good at picking up information in a very good way, just what out of what's online. I think they vary a bit in quality. I've been using the one they call Copilot, and that's probably not up to the level of chat. But if there's good information online, if there's a nice paper or something like that, it can just copy it.
yeah.
But you can't ask it about stuff which is not that well known. It doesn't work out. But some stuff's good. Like if I do a Google search, I got a problem with the computer. With the program, what do I do here? I do a Google search, I might find something okay. But say with something like Copilot, it'll generally come up with something very good and a step-by-step procedure on what to do. And I don't know exactly how the language model works, but obviously they've built something into it that it picks up the better information in general.
That's
But
cool. That's cool that you found a way to use it. I only used it once and I didn't like it. I was freaked out by it because I was like you I was trying to write something that I didn't have a lot of knowledge about, and so I wanted just like a starting point, just a reference point to read and then go from that. And I use and I end and my first draft just ended up using too much of the text that it generated, and I felt like I was cheating by using it. But it seems like you're using it in a more practical way. I like that. I think that's what he does. He figures out the best ways to utilize it without compromising authenticity somehow.
well, I think somebody told me that one of the things they notice is that the AI will make mistakes that a human wouldn't make. And that's one of the things that they can dig out with the plagiarization. So it seems one of the problems is that people that are using it for doing essays, if they fail to go over the essay that they've been given and work through it to sort of erase the obvious elements of plagiarization,
Yeah. I used it for what did I use it for? It was so long ago. I used it for I was writing a petition to stop the local library, try and stop the local library from carrying weird, like gay, transgender, pornographic books for teenagers. And I can't remember why specifically I decided I wanted to use it because I didn't know something about something. I think it was pornog or like something about statistics about something. And it really like came up with a lot of information. And then I'm like, I don't even know if the information was factual, but would it be though? If it was AI, it would have to be, right? No, not necessarily. Just
Well, yeah, if I asked Copilot a difficult question, like I was curious, say, I wanted to know about Egyptian chariots. Famously, there was this huge battle, which is one of the first battles recorded in history, where the main weapon was chariots. Ramesses II led his chariots in the battle. And I just wanted to know, okay, so you got a chariot driver and you got the warrior, but how much other support staff would you need? You'd need guys to work on the chariot because these were very lightweight. They had to go all the way from Egypt to Syria, so these chariots just aren't rolling along. They're dismounted and put on the back of pack animals, and only like a racing car,
right, or
put
a
there,
circus
put there on the battlefield. Uh, and
carnival,
hmm?
like a carnival, like a race.
Yeah. Well, you'd need servants to look after the horses.
Mhm.
Warriors, for starters, were notoriously lazy. The only
Mhm.
thing they did was war. They might
Mhm.
practice their skill at arms, but after that, they demanded to be, and they might exercise, do their standard exercises, but they demanded to be, have servants if they were a really top line warrior. Yeah, I ask these questions, and so it comes back and it just quotes stuff offline. It's not really answering the question I had about the additional support staff you need. So there's obviously very little research online in that regard. It just talks about various chariot teams and mentions them, and then starts on about, chariot teams, orc chariot teams. So it's getting stuff out of a role-playing game with, things like orcs, how they have those fantasy role-playing games.
Yeah.
It pulled that out like it was factual information.
Oh, how funny. So it's kind of like you use it like an encyclopedia. That makes sense. Yeah.
Uh,
Really? They said orcs were part of history. That's fun.
yeah, well, you'd be doing chat GTP or something like that and, talking about world events, and then it'll probably say, well, uh, how are the orcs going or something like that? How's Frodo doing? Frodo's a very famous personality, you see, and somehow
Hmm.
it slipped that it was dealing with pure fantasy.
Yeah. I'm sure some people back then were orc-like, probably though.
Uh, okay, barbarians.
Maybe they
Well, I
had some
suppose
gimpy orc-like people working the carny for sure.
all right, yeah, you're picturing the carnival. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the TV show, which I thought was rather good, was called Carnivale or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't watch it, but I remember it.
First season was pretty good. Second season, it was one of those very sophisticated sort of things they made, and it appealed due to the amount of detail that was in it. But the second season started to go.
Yeah, it always does by the second season. No, by the third. After that, it all goes to shit with like every show, except some people say Star Trek is not, but I never watched it, so I don't know.
Star Trek, you mean the original series or all the spin-offs?
I don't know. I'm not a Trekkie. Are you a Trekkie?
Well, I was very fond of the original series when I was a kid.
Yeah, I wasn't.
I think I did end up watching a lot of the spin-offs, but uh, they just didn't grab me. A lot of people liked them a great deal. But the original one grabbed me because it had a lot of very classic storylines.
Yeah,
So, okay, your ex, because he's very familiar with the this new AI, it's
yeah. He's
culture,
finally
culture.
he's finally found like they need him. He feels like they need him and he feels really good about that. So I'm happy for him.
Until they find somebody else that they can replace him with.
Yeah, until the AI gets smarter than him, until he teaches them how to use it, and then they don't need him anymore. So when you were talking about Connolly,
Yeah.
you were talking about how the nationalism was a problem or not a problem, but played a part because people had trouble being at odds with people who were of their own nationality.
Well, it's a more of a family feeling. People
Yeah,
had very much the same culture. So Connolly, of course, he's somebody on the bottom of the social scale and he's a troublemaker,
yeah,
but he's white, he's Christian,
right,
they're speaking the same language.
right,
They can't disregard him. Of course, now we have a world full of immigrants, and
right.
that's just perfect for capitalism because there's such a clash of cultures that they don't tend to cooperate very well.
Yeah.
It's easy to isolate somebody. See,
Mhm.
in a sense, with Connolly, going where he did because he's part of that culture, white Christian, it's not so easy to isolate him, even though he's a troublemaker.
Yeah,
People have that Christian attitude that if you're on the bottom of the scale, that you should still be shown some sort of respect. It was a feeling. Now, what you're talking about, the modern liberal, it's verbiage when they talk about everybody being nice to each other. It's not a real dedication. The Christians had a stronger sense of dedication. They believed that they had their God pulling all the strings at the end of the day. And today, yeah, this is the fascinating thing. I'm wondering now. Of course, we've got faceless capitalism now. I mean, the big capitalist names in late 19th century might have been pricks, but they were pricks with a face. There was somebody you could talk to. But today it's so faceless.
yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit interested in Rudolf Steiner's ideas when I was a bit younger, and some of his outlooks are a bit curious. I ended up, of course, I was quite enamored with all his spiritualist teachings when I was young, and then I realised it was a bit of a load of nonsense. But looking back on Steiner, he first started out trying to be a philosopher, and he wasn't too bad as a philosopher. Nietzsche's sister famously wanted Steiner to edit Nietzsche's archives, which shows he must have had some reputation. I'm looking at some of the things he wrote. And he's got some amazing insights. You know, he was saying, I don't know, of course, a lot of this stuff he might have borrowed from somewhere else because he was in the German world. And there's a lot of stuff us English speakers just don't know about, you know, what was in German literature. But he made this amazing thing. And, you know, I spent my life, I started out as a Marxist and I was always very socialist. And he said the funny thing you'll notice with socialists is that they're very antisocial people. And maybe he's got a point that we're actually living in a rather antisocial age. People are very distracted. They've got their own lives to live. They've got so many complexities to deal with. And he said because people aren't social, they're not really good at being social, they will demand socialism. They will demand a society which is objective, which is created for them. But they've failed to gain the social skill which enables them to navigate through life. So they want everything sort of set up for them. I mean, I started to notice that and I realised even my own attitudes as a socialist, I would just like everything laid out for me. I would like to live in what was really a huge child's creche with somebody else looking after you. And I realised, yeah, it's a lack of maturity, really. Kierkegaard, the philosopher, pointed this out, that most people would rather somebody else take care of everything. And they would just have a good time. They'd go shopping, they'd meditate on their belly button and all that. He said that the qualities which rise above that is, first of all, responsibility, which he called ethics. And he said that the most basic ethical quality is to be responsible. And there's a lot of people today who just don't want to be responsible. And then above that, he called it the religious attitude. And the religious attitude is really about thinking for yourself. And a lot of people don't want to think. They want somebody else to do the thinking for them.
Yes, it's like a resistance. They don't want self-sufficiency. It's a fear of self-sufficiency, or they're resisting it. And I understand that. I understand that feeling, because to navigate yourself as fully as possible, no one can navigate themselves. No one can be completely independent, but can be frightening, which is why I think like the idea of God is very comforting to people, and just to have that kind of buffer between you and decision making, you and how you navigate your future and your life, some sort of guide, or maybe even like a scapegoat if something goes wrong, so you don't have to take full responsibility for your actions.
That was what Rene Girard wrote. And he said, I always wondered about Christianity. And he said that he actually explained something for me. Why did Christianity have this idea of Jesus being sacrificed? And he brought up the idea of the scapegoat, that a human community likes to blame somebody. They want to make a person a scapegoat. And so Christianity is a narrative built around this inclination of the scapegoat. And suddenly, well, I can see that Which is probably why it worked, why it was so successful, that it built something about this quality into its narrative.
Yeah, and the scapegoat, I think, can offer the idea of a scapegoat offers people room to be riskier and take more risks because they have that. They feel like they have that to fall back on if it doesn't work out, or if something goes wrong, or if it doesn't go as planned, or if they have egg on their face. So perhaps that idea is useful in some ways, the scapegoat.
Yeah, I'm starting to think we could be in for, well, I'm old now, so my time in this my days are numbered probably.
Well, you were like what, 60?
64.
Okay, you're not that old.
Well, it used to be old a long time ago, but
You still you still got 25 good years left, right?
that could be the case as long as something doesn't go too awry. Yeah, so sometimes I've had this Indonesian girl, Natalia. She comes on, and she's in Australia. She's studying to be a teacher because she wants to get residency, so she doesn't have to go back to Indonesia. And I keep on warning her. Yeah, I lived through an era which was still better. That it wasn't as hard. I think I remember the film Easy Riders. They said that Easy Riders was about a couple of guys who couldn't be bothered with anything and just wanted to enjoy themselves. And this was a hippie era, just about.
Right.
People could get away with being irresponsible, not really taking a great interest in responsibility, or not even improving their minds much. So there are people who will be responsible, but they might not make the effort to improve their mind that much.
Right, but like that's true. That's true because they know how to get by without doing that. They
Well,
know
things.
they know how to get by they've learned how to get by the easy way. But Easy Rider, like they weren't very smart, were they? Let's just talk about that for just a moment. How dumb were they? You don't go to the South and give people the finger with your, you don't do that. That was just dumb. I didn't understand that movie. I was like, okay, they're hippies, but do they have to be so blatantly stupid?
This is actually the hallmark of the meaning of the word intelligence, as averse to being knowledgeable. That you could be a knowledgeable person in the world you're brought up in, but an intelligent person is a person that can go to a different world and understand the rules.
Yes. And adapt and not get killed.
Well, part of it, of course, was their irresponsibility, like when they picked up Jack Nicholson.
Right.
And he get some rednecks see them sleeping on the side of the road and come and just
Yep.
beat them up. Jack Nicholson.
Not smart.
Nicholson gets killed, but even at that point, it's like,
They all get killed.
yeah, I know that Nicholson was the first one to die.
I know. I felt bad about that.
But this is the thing. The responsible thing would have been to go to the cops, but they didn't
Yeah.
want any trouble. They
Right.
just buried his body. So they were irresponsible. And this is a message in the film, how you bring society down. is at the
Yeah.
end of it, they get killed in another situation with rednecks.
Right.
And of course, these rednecks have been running around and people just can't be bothered reporting
Mm-hmm.
to bring them to heel. And so, because somebody else hasn't reported this redneck, he's still out there playing his games and they
Mm.
get killed.
Yeah.
Somebody else has been irresponsible and they suffer as a result of it. And they
Yep.
had been irresponsible themselves.
Yep. I'm living in a town of irresponsible people, irresponsible rednecks to be exact. It's a nightmare. They've got a code. There's like a local redneck code of vigilante justice or vigilante capitalism, I guess it would be in their own tiny little culture, their way of dominating the and traversing their surroundings and finding their niche, their criminal activity niche to dominate and capitalize. And they have their own little code of ethics. And it is very irresponsible and it is very degenerative societally and only serves to promote and help them become financially stable and nothing else. I guess it would be like, I don't know, maybe like moonshine production, like making all that money on moonshine, knowing that the people you're selling it to, um, it's decreasing their quality of life, or like, drugs, the meth sales and stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I gave up work was the amount of people using stimulants. I
Oh,
was
did
in
you?
blue collar work, forklift driving,
Yeah.
and like I haven't used hard drugs in my life,
Uh-huh.
but I realised there was a lot of people using meth to give them that ability to, be a really good worker, just keep the speed up all day and stuff like that. But occasionally, of course, they'll flip. You'll beep your horn on the forklift, and then someone else will go, "Don't beep that horn," You're supposed to. That was the rule, and they just
Right.
flip. Maybe I shouldn't have beeped the horn. Maybe I shouldn't have been such a stickler for the rules.
No way, man. They're just go off they're off their rocker. And they're off their rocker and they have the Superman complex because they're high as fuck and they don't care about the rules at that point. Their impulse control is what is out the window, and their patience and their sensibilities. I don't blame you. So what, you retired early or you just like quit or you changed fields?
Well, my mother died, and I sold her house, and I figured, oh well, yeah, I'm on my own. Might as well, the the amount you get paid these days is pretty poor in jobs. The social atmosphere in jobs isn't that great, and well, you got so many years to live. I thought I'll just spend my time, just doing my own thing.
That's cool. And how long ago was that?
2018.
Wow.
Well, look, you
So you're
probably
on
remember.
you're on
So,
year what, 6?
yeah, yeah.
And how's it going?
Oh, well, okay. I've still got money.
Yeah, but are you like,
Things get really tragic in 3 years. I'm old enough for the pension anyway. So, Yeah, I've lost sound.
Yeah, I think she's
Oh, sorry. Are you
dealing with
cool with
somebody.
like not seeing people? Not being forced to see people?
Well, actually, I've been a lot more social in a sense.
Well, that's good.
And I'm starting to find it annoying because it takes up my time. I'm just so busy with all, a lot of this philosophy and Zoom stuff and knowing people and stuff like that. And, of course, if you get on Facebook and you know a few people, they start sending you messages and you're just not in the mood to deal with them. It's like Natalia, she's seen a cat video. So she sends a cat video.
Yeah, I hear you. I had a relative on Facebook that forced me to close my entire Facebook page because she wouldn't stop sending me messages like some distant cousin I'd never even met before. We had the same last name. She's like, "Oh my God," sending me a message every day, cupcake recipes. I'm like, "Oh my God."
You
I was
really
like,
want to know about those cupcake
yeah, I was
recipes.
like, I'm out. Like, I'm just deleting my entire Facebook page just because I don't want to have to deal with this one woman.
Yeah, so I've sort of been, I'm just sort of wondering what's going on in the world. You've got all this sort of, this woke culture that showed up as well. And
Yeah.
I started to think, well, this is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh, yeah. It's horrible. It's horrible. I emerged from COVID and went back to work and tried to hire some of these people just out of high school. Oh my God, it was like Clash of Clans. I didn't understand what the fuck they were talking about. They came off as very professional and very um like they were very politically correct, they knew how to say the exact right thing, but they were, in a sense, lying and making excuses, but doing it in a way that made it so I couldn't say you're lying and making excuses. Does that make sense? Like they're
Yeah, sort of. There's a very sort of training aspect.
Yes, and it was creepy. It was almost like they were robotic in their communications and very matter of fact. Like they did not ask permission. They told me that they were not going to come into work because of this. And I had never experienced this before. Like they felt entitled to just do whatever they wanted and did not question one bit. And if I questioned it, I was toxic and an abusive employer and all these things, and I didn't understand, like I didn't get it at all. I had So eventually they all quit or I fired them, and now I don't have any employees, and I'm happy as shit because I don't have to deal with their bullshit anymore. But like yeah, I did not this woke culture is, to me, is like a form of mental illness and almost like an insanity, like a controlled, politically correct insanity. What do people call it? They call it the woke mind virus. I like that. I think it's appropriate. It is a mind virus because it's like they're insisting that we believe whatever they say, even if it's not factual, because they feel like it's the right thing. And it's very bizarre.
Yeah, you're expressing it very well, actually.
Yeah, it's like if they feel strongly enough that they're right, that's all that matters. Facts don't matter, nothing. As long as they feel like what they're saying is right, that trumps everything.
There's a case in Melbourne recently. You had this Jewish guy. Was in he went to you they have a store here called Office Works. Do you have something like that in the US? I assume you.
Yeah, Office Max or Staples, but I think Staples went out of business. So Office Max now.
Well, this was a Jewish area, so the Office Works was in a Jewish area. And anyway, he had some Jewish newspaper that he wanted, how you say, have that plastic sort of stuff put over it. And the staff member he came up to had one of those little pins, support Palestine.
Oh God.
And when they saw that it was a uh, pro sort of Israel sort of thing, and he's just having it. What do you call it when you have it? The plastic put over it, that plastic veneer.
Oh, over your teeth? What?
Oh no, over the newspaper when you have a piece of God, why can't I remember what it is?
What, like
Oh,
if you're reading in the pool?
yeah, you want to preserve, say you've got a piece of newspaper and you want it really preserved, you'll get this
Got it.
plastic
Yes.
put over it.
Yes. Like a cellophane sleeve or something.
Uh,
Laminated.
yeah, that's it, laminated.
There you go.
Anyway, the staff member said, well, I don't like Israel, so I'm not going to do it. Now, I could put myself in the same position. Let's say I'm pro-Palestine and I don't like Israel, but that's my job. I'm still going to do it in its service with a smile because I think, well, that's life. Life is complex. And just because somebody is in a separate has a separate political outlook, doesn't mean they're absolutely your enemy. It's just life. That's just the way it works out. And this younger generation, yeah, they don't seem to understand that.
No.
Everything is so literal.
Hmm. Yeah,
Everything's a simple idea.
yeah. Well, it's everything is a simple idea to them that they can move the goalposts at any point to make sure that whatever they say remains in the right, or whatever their agenda is remains in the right, because facts don't matter, which is
Now,
frightening.
I've been an employee most of my life. And of course, when I was young, I had the attitude, you're a bit annoyed with your employer making demands. Of course, I got older and you start to realize, well, people running businesses, it's very line ball. It's something where, you have to be on top of things for things to work. And the employees will often not understand that. I think I began to observe it when I became like a shop steward, a union shop steward. And I realised all the workers, they got an attitude, uh, they're just out for themselves. They talk about the rightness of the working class and what they want, but they're really out for more for themselves, and they don't respect that the business has a bottom line. And I started to wake up to that. I realised that running a small business, the statistics are most fail. It takes a bit of nous to run a business, and it's stressful. But, most people just want to work for somebody else because they don't want to deal with those issues.
Yeah. Yes, it's very true. employees don't care. They pretend they care. I had a couple employees that cared, maybe actually cared about the welfare and the day-to-day workings and the reputation of the business. But most people just pretend to care.
Well, you go through school. I remember the boss when we were arguing with him. So I was like the union rep there, and he said, "You people, you're institutionalized." And I remember that one. I thought about it, and I think he's right. I think this is a problem with the schooling system that they institutionalize people, and people leave school thinking everything's an institution. And I remember the philosopher Schopenhauer. I know Rudolf Steiner's got his own educational system, and you look at what Steiner said, and you can tell he's copied Schopenhauer. And Schopenhauer was a person who was pointing out that to be wary of this thing where you turn people into robots. Students need to learn to use their own initiative rather than just learn by rote, because you can just live there following the institution's initiative in the school, that's fine. But once you get out of the school, you've got what is a bad habit of not really seeing things for yourself or thinking for yourself or looking at the broader implications.
Right. Or only following the protocols and kind of politically correct structures within that institution, and think that that carries over into other institutions that might be completely different.
Well, it's a lot of baggage,
Yeah.
and baggage costs money, time and money.
And if
Time
an
is money.
right, and if an institution coddles certain behaviors, and then these people think they're entitled to have these behaviors tolerated and coddled wherever they go from now on, like, for instance, like supporting, students' feelings and things overly in high primary, middle school, and high school, and then thinking that that carries over, like it's not a good practice there.
I think it's going to come to a head in the, say the Anglo-Saxon cultures, or what they call a particular part of the West, excluding continental Europe. If they lose efficiency, they're going to be struggling against cultures that don't have this sort of politically correct baggage.
Right. They already are. We're a mess. We're all over the place. We've got no structure. We've got no stability. It's chaos over here. We need some discipline.
Oh, well, like this conflict in Europe. Actually, I don't like what started it, but again, you have a culture which calls itself liberal, democratic, and inclusive. And this is a new religion. And hey, guys, we're going to teach the rest of humanity our religion.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're right. It's like the Christians in the Middle Ages. There's pagans over the other side of the border, and the Christians are saying, can't you guys see our light, the lights of
Mm-hmm.
Christianity? It should be just transforming you. I think, yeah, with the liberals, they sort of thought, well, a lot of the liberals are atheists, and they sort of thought, oh, religion's on the way out, where our enlightenment is going to be the dominant force of the future. Then the Muslims show up. Hey, dudes, can't you see our enlightenment? And the Muslims are going, it looks like garbage to us. And they were shocked. They just thought that their ideas were it and are going to pervade the entire world, just gradually transform the entire world. And it's not really working out the way they thought it would. And I used to think the same.
Yeah, and most and everyone's saying that their ideologies are enlightenment. Everybody. But we're the true enlightenment. No, we're the true enlightenment. No, we're the true enlightenment. I'm like, why is everyone obsessed with that word?
Well, it's sort of a belief that the world's going to dance to your tune. And
Yeah,
when I got a little bit older, I realized, well, the world's a lot bigger than that.
like they put this forward facing thing that enlightenment is actually like this state of being where it's almost like a superiority complex being masked by selflessness. And it's like, and it's, yeah, that's what it is. And I'm like, it's just bullshit.
It's a trick that all these people, I think, they want a huge collective. You know, they want society to be this huge collective. And I used to think this way. Like a kiddie's crochet where you can fall down on the job and somebody else will take care of it. It's sort of, it's a bit like passing the buck. It's the idea that, oh, I'll just meditate upon my own navel and the rest of humanity can keep things going. But unfortunately, everybody's becoming a bit like that. And I think this is where a lot of it currently, there's a lot of problems showing up. You know, there's a lot of inflation. I think a lot of the inflation is just the result of poor practice starting to take over. But
Yeah,
you can,
like there's this like selfishness trend, like me first, which I understand. Yes, you have to take care of yourself in order to function and take care of others. But I think some people have interpreted it as my needs and my feelings and my comfort levels rise above everything else. And it's
okay,
like,
yeah, that's
no.
the killer. I am a selfish person. I want good for myself. I want to benefit myself. Yeah, that's fine.
And they
But
think that's enlightenment. I'm like, no.
yeah, well, that's okay. Their problem is that they can't think outside that box and realize the other person has got their own thing going. And you have
Mhm.
to be objectively aware that other people have their own interests. The world's not just there to serve you. You might like it to be that way, but the reality isn't that. It's this inability to distinguish between wish fulfillment and the reality. Like I can have all sorts of wishes. I wish I had a Learjet. That's fine. I'm not going to get one. I won't be ever able to afford one. But these people think me want Learjet, me get Learjet. And me want, me get. It's okay wanting. I can want lots of things, but getting it is more than just wishing it. That's a term they used to use a few years ago. This is a very, I think, yeah, 40 years ago, they were saying we're getting to be a very me want, me get generation.
Yeah. It's almost like the opportunists will co-opt any trending thing to fit in with whatever it is they're trying to get for themselves. So like this whole thing about enlightenment has been very popular lately. And so there are so many different ways where people can claim to be enlightened, but like some people will co-opt it to just fuel their own like narcissistic agendas of, I'm above having to deal with anybody else's uh needs, wants, requests, demands, because I've placed myself in this enlightened position where I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? But there are other there are other social trends that people are doing this with, like self-love, unconditional self-acceptance is also a new buzzword, or like whatever. And
Not pulling your socks up.
right, it's like I'm sure whoever came up with the actual psychological practice, has a good thing going, but people just hear unconditional self-acceptance. They don't do any research on it. They don't come from a true like philosophical or psychological standpoint, but they will latch onto that phrase because it's very popular. And then they're like, look at me. I can do whatever I want. I can wear and, present however I want. I can be unhealthy. I can be rude. I can be a dick. But as long as I practice unconditional self acceptance, because that's the like healthy, that's healthy, that it's okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I wondered about, I wondered about the word healthy. It's used so often, and a
Yeah,
person will say, healthy skepticism. I said, well, that's a bit like a healthy poison, isn't it? I'm not
right.
saying it's wrong to be skeptical, but they just seem to accept these words. Healthy
Yes,
skepticism, like, yeah, but what is healthy skepticism really?
that's
Is there
exactly
a
it.
healthy skepticism? I don't know. This is
Yeah.
healthy, that's healthy.
They latch on to catchphrases and then they just co-opt them to serve their whatever needs they have at the time.
This is interesting because you go back to the original Enlightenment and Goethe and the German idealists, not all of them, but they were reactionaries against the original Enlightenment. And of
Mm.
course, the Enlightenment was
It
there
was
in
impractical.
France. Sorry?
I said probably because it was impractical.
Oh, you had guys like Voltaire, and they spent 50 years discussing the revolution, that when we get in power, we're going to make things really great. And the Enlightenment, as they fought themselves, had the French Revolution and they took over. And of course, it's so ironic, they said witchcraft trials, that's superstition, heretic trials, that's superstition. We will be better than that. But the irony is that within 9 months, they had chopped off the heads of as many people that had been executed in trials for witchcraft and heresy in Western Europe over the last 3 centuries before that. And that's the craziness of these revolutions. But Goethe was famous for being a romantic, so there was a romantic reaction. Then Hegel came along and he was a new type of enlightenment, and you had the existentialists showed up as a reaction against that. They had doubts. They claimed that Hegel's views were very collectivizing. It ignored the individual. And that's what we have today is the world is becoming like a steamroller, which is rolling over the individual.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. So what sort of business did you do?
I own a little boutique shop. It's fun. It's sales. It's very low pressure sales. I sell inexpensive, fun items. When people come in, they are usually having there to amuse themselves and buy something for fun, and it's very lighthearted and I enjoy it.
I used to use the term novelty store, a
Yeah,
hundred years.
I wouldn't go that far. It's not, we're not selling fake vomit or dog shit. But, we sell like jewelry and t-shirts and just fun shit, I guess. Something to perk up your day or gifts for loved ones, cards and stuff like that, pottery. It's fun, it's creative. I enjoy it much more now that I don't have to direct people to do things for me, which is so much more of a pain in the ass than just doing it yourself and less fun. So I found.
Yeah, well, it's become very hard to just get somebody off the street as an employee.
Oh my God, it's horrible. And plus, like, it's more fun doing it myself, and the results are better. And yeah, and I don't have to deal with a middleman or pay anyone to be a dick to me. It's perfect. It's just perfect. Oh, the only thing about working for yourself, though, is health insurance. I don't have that.
Oh,
So,
that's right. Yeah, I have seen that in America. Yeah, I just realised. Yeah.
where'd the other guy go?
Oh, David tends to be very quiet. He runs a few of these Zoom sessions. Sometimes you don't get much out of him, but he runs quite a number of groups, which is handy. Like this was the last comic we were studying called Panic Fable. So, uh, some Russian Jewish guy who lived in Bolivia or something like that and ended up in France. So a bit of an odd cultural background. Uh, the panic fables, and I didn't know what this meant, and it actually refers to the god Pan. So this is hippiedom, at the height of hippiedom. And this guy made a really crazy looking spaghetti western, which I don't know if I'll ever try and watch because it just looks so weird. But he's still alive, it seems. He's pretty old.
It was on that list I gave you about a year ago. You said you would want to do it, so here we
Well,
are
it's an
doing it.
insight. I mean, this is sort of cartoon work. He ran these little cartoons in some sort of weekly paper or something like this, and so he's just got all these crazy ideas. Now, at first, I was a bit shocked by this moronic seeming art, but it did start to grow on me after a while. And he was sort of like started out as live sort of theatre, which he called the panic arts or something like that. He used a certain term for it. And so, yeah, this was hippie art, I suppose. I say the hippies have got a lot to answer for now, but it was an era. I was one image I liked. I'll have to dig that out. Uh,
I think the artwork is really cool. I like it.
well, you're a fan then. Oh, this is one that grabbed me, I think. Okay, yeah, the COVID era. So this is from 1969. It is evil to require others to receive.
I,
It-
did you open another window? Because we're looking at page 19,
oh, okay.
September
Right, yeah.
24,
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got to check that.
1916. So if you want us to look at what you're looking at, you have to.
Yeah, okay. There we go. That's it. It is evil to require others to receive. Accept my gifts, scoundrels. So this would be a great one for the COVID era. The sort of the forced vaccination. So this is a health service which demands you be their clients. It's not like you have a choice. Oh, okay, I like a vaccination. I'll pay you money for it. Or being uninterested isn't acceptable in the new mass corporation market. We like to simplify things. We like you to be like cows that are running through a stockade, and we'll give you the injections and we'll put a clip on your ears. And this seems to be where the world's going. And it's the free individual is disappearing. I should have complained, actually. I had an AstraZeneca shot, that was right. And it was worse, although not as long, but for a few hours, it was worse than any cold or flu I've ever had. I took the AstraZeneca shot. It's okay for a few hours, then I started to feel very cold. And then I was just flat in bed, couldn't do anything. Then in the middle of the night, I started to throw up. And by morning, I was okay. I should have complained, really, sitting, what's going on here?
This image is so good. Accept my gifts, scoundrels. I love it.
Well, this is a public-private partnership that we have corporations who want to sell their stuff, and you will buy. You have to buy. You can't say no. Now, if people come into your shop, you're not forcing them to buy your sales items. It's a free choice. But this new corporate culture, this faceless corporate culture, is building a system. They want everything to be absolutely predictable. They want the consumers not to exercise choice. They want the consumers to fit their choices. And people, because they're so passive, will tend to just go along with it.
Yeah, social pressure. And I was just hearing about how politicians were implementing ways to enforce social pressure by implementing like watches where neighbors could inform on other neighbors for not following COVID protocols within their own homes, which, how frightening is that?
Yeah, a lot of it was questionable. I don't know, looking at it from what I'm able to figure out, and there is evidence of this, that the masking doesn't work very well with viruses. Now, bacteria, yeah, sure, you've got bacteria in your spittle, and you can greatly reduce the passage of bacteria with masks, but it seems viruses just get around the mask. It's like taking a broken umbrella out in a rainstorm. It might protect you from a few drops of rain, but you're going to get drenched in the end. And the shots, I thought it was a cure. and it wasn't. You still get COVID. But in theory, the shot enables your immune system to cope with it better. But you're still spreading it. And they were telling us that, once you took a shot, you wouldn't spread COVID. And, I realised, because I'd asked a few medical professionals when I was about 20 that why didn't they just have a shot that could eliminate flus and colds? And they said, well, it just mutates so fast. I went to my GP. I'd had a bad flu when I was about 21, and I said, well, should I get flu shots? And he said that you shouldn't be suffering that much. You probably got a nutritional factor which is going wrong. He said flu shots are really only handy for old people that have compromised immune systems. And he said that there was a certain risk. Any shot you take can be a bad one. It might be 1 in 100,000. Whereas if you just got the flu, you're young, healthy, you'll get over it. I was talking to a nurse about 40 years ago, and she said the same thing, that the mass vaccinations didn't work, and they made things worse, actually, that if you developed a vaccine to give to old people with compromised immune systems, if you mass vaccinated everybody, it means that very quickly a mutant strain would become dominant, and your original vaccine is rendered a bit useless. And that gets to the people with compromised systems. So this is an interesting thing that I just wonder about all this. I don't know. I could be wrong. But it looks like there's a hierarchy, for example, in one corporate thing like the medical profession. I mean, you go to a doctor now, and he gets kickbacks if he puts you on a pill. Like, yeah, are you really serving the interest of your patient, or just sort of like making money? Yeah, so his art is most interesting. If you want to look up his name, if you find his art, this is sort of, I suppose, art which probably tended to appear in the underground shops at the time. My body is full of flesh. That's a startling observation. So he's got this Jesus Gurdjieff figure. I think he studied a bit of Gurdjieff. So he's got this prophet style figure, with the acolyte asking questions. I think he got a bit better as he went along. But I didn't get through all of it, so I only got a bit less than halfway through it. He had a thing with marbles, and try to be the perfect marble. Okay, he's always got this box thing with legs, and sometimes it's got like a periscope coming out the top. And I don't know what kids draw these days. I remember that kids would draw when I was about 9 or 12. I'll do a lot of crazy illustrations with guns and stuff like that. Sort of montages like this. So I don't know what they're drawing these days. Father, what is love? Love is taking in order to give. Father, what is freedom? It's knowing yourself and acting in accordance with what you are. Father, what is giving? Giving is knowing how to receive. So that who receives may beget and who begets may give. The water in the glass is me. Water, please, a little water. Lends me your glass. Yes, master. If you tell me what of this water is yours, I will let you carry it. Trying to make the perfect circle. Okay, there's his device there. I'm a gag rope. So there's sort of a box with legs with a periscope out the top, which is useless. That's actually sounds a bit like Kafka. Kafka had something like that in one of his tales. Yeah, so I'm trying to expand my knowledge a bit in my old age, getting up on all these things like Kafka and all that. And it looks like you're going to have to be pretty clever to deal with woke or to deal with other things. Oh, that's right. Okay, this is a good one. They are too lazy to work on themselves, and at the same time, it is very pleasant for them to think that they can help others. Gurdjieff. So you get a lot of people. This is this Peterson guy. Peterson just comes out and says, well, clean up your own backyard before you try to run the world. And he gets a lot of flack. And he's just talking about responsibility. So Jordan Peterson uses all this idea of self-responsibility, learning to think for yourself. And the majority of people think that's too much hard work. They'd rather somebody else take responsibility for them, somebody else make the decisions. Okay, he's got a guy looking at a bat. And both of them think that they're the one that's upside down. A kangaroo trying to be a bee and create honey. It's just not working. Hey, dude, you're a kangaroo, you're not a bee. Okay, David, are you still there?
Yeah.
So next week we've got
Next week, we are starting our H.P. Lovecraft journey. This is going to take a while. We'll be at this for a while. This will take a year or two. There's a lot of Lovecraft to get through.
yeah, well, he was famous for his weird stories. I used to watch Night Gallery and stuff like that, and Outer Limits,
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. I think they tended to have the occasional Lovecraftian story in them.
Yeah, well, I anticipate this will take a year or two to get through everything, which we will. Beginning of our great Lovecraft exploration in comics. And Amy, I want to say, even though we are here every Friday night,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that I'm going to post the meeting on the Philosophers and Gamblers meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
I pick and choose which ones
so
I post.
how like do you just like invite people?
No, I just post it. What I'm saying is I don't post every Friday meeting on the group that you're
Right.
a member of. I post.
Okay, this is a link which you always use. This is the
Oh, okay.
meetup
So am
for.
I invited?
There
Absolutely, you're
you go.
invited, but I'm just saying you're not going to see it listed on the
Hey.
gamblers
So
meeting.
Uh,
it'll be this link though.
yeah, I think it's always on this link. This is David's own personal link.
All right. So I'm sorry I got off topic. I apologize for that. I had a lot of fun going off topic though, but I'll try not to do it in the future.
That's acceptable under our rules. David will tell you
Okay.
that. If you want to go off topic, that's cool.
Thanks. And I really enjoyed, I think, what was it? The Panic Room? Is that what it's
It's an
called?
interesting art form, yeah.
I like looking at it and I loved seeing some of the things just briefly. So I think I'm going to buy it and read it.
Cool.
I
Yeah,
like that
sure.
thing about like being just like an ambulating meat puppet and just, I don't know, some of those ideas, the shots, and then the so many things in that I just from glimpsing it was like so relevant for what's happening today in many respects. And I love that when I'm like, it's almost like they're seeing into the future. Very interesting. I'm
Well,
excited for
well,
Loft.
some futures are coming up. It's like politically correct speech in 1984, which I went to school, they gave you the book to read, and
Yeah,
now it's becoming a reality in some respects.
so crazy. My son read just finished high school. He just graduated from high school last year and he read 1984 and Brave New World. And he's like, Mom, you gotta reread them because I hadn't read them since high school. So I did. I didn't read them, but I listened to them. And it was eerie, just eerie, both of them. And I had no idea 1984 was a love story. It was just great. Just great. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm not like a Lovecraft expert or anything, but I'm familiar. So I'm looking forward to it and I'm looking forward to actually reading the things.
As I said, if you ever need a digital electronic copy of the books, be sure to let me know and I'll send them to you so you can read them and be prepared.
Thanks. I'm excited. I just joined a movie critique or like philosophy club. And I'll say that I've really enjoyed critiquing and watching movies in a new way. But what I haven't enjoyed are the egghead members of the group, which I'm not getting that you guys are bloviating people. Like, I don't know. Have you ever been a member of a group and there's just a couple people that just seem to want to dominate I know
Yeah,
the I know everything sort of attitude?
there's a name for them.
What is it?
They developed in ancient Greece. They called them sophists. There were the
Okay.
philosophers and the sophists. And the sophists aren't true philosophers. They're not just sharing ideas, they're trying to dominate.
Yeah. It's like he has to go first and say blurt everything out and like what do I call it? He's a blowhard. I'm like, could you just calm down? Like it's not a contest. We're just having a nice discussion about a movie. So, I'm excited to just read and think and share without having someone try and knock me down a peg or two. I'm tired of that. So, how do I get in touch for if I wanted a digital copy of something?
Uh,
Well, you can copy them in the
click,
chat.
click, click on the chat, and you'll find the download links
Oh,
in the
thanks.
chat for, well, okay, it's gonna be five I issues.
Okay.
The first one is the main one, and the next four are just a sample, are samples of the same thing, which just differently, just to get you the. I'm not explaining this correctly. You'll see when you see it.
Okay. Thanks.
But the first one is the main thing that we're going to be doing. The next
Cool.
four are just samples of the same thing. But anyway, but where you go to get the Zoom link for next week,
Yeah.
I would recommend joining. You could join my comics group if you like.
Okay. Yeah. Where's that?
Sure thing. Yeah,
Thanks.
things. Um, Ohio.
You're in California?
I am.
Nice.
If you join here, there's lots of comics there, but comics meetings, I mean, but I do a few of them. I do this one here on Friday and a couple of others. And we
Okay.
actually do movies.
Oh, cool. See, I'm new to movie critique, but
Hmm.
I did Kiss of the Spider Woman, and whoa, I just really loved it. I saw so much
There's,
shit.
there's
I
a lot of
saw
movies
that at
I
the
haven't seen.
cinema, I think when it came out. It was a really, it was sort of mind-blowing film, wasn't it?
It was great. I just loved it. I just loved reading into all of the how everyone else in the group felt sorry for the what I thought was the villain. I considered the person to be the villain they thought was the sympathetic character,
Careful, I'll probably put it on my list to watch
which
eventually.
completely blew my mind. No, it didn't blow my mind. I predicted it. I predicted they would because that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't spoil anything.
I'm not
I'll get
gonna
it.
do it. I won't.
I'll
Okay.
get around to it.
Yeah, so if I go on this meetup.com, whatever comics and animation,
That's the one. Yeah,
that's where I'll get the Zoom link.
that's right. And
Okay.
it'll be, I mean, presuming you RSVP to it, of course, then it'll post it. Yeah, I know I change the Zoom link every week. Yeah.
Okay.
And the movie nights are Saturday nights and Wednesday nights. I don't know if that works for you. And I do a few other meetings. So But
Okay, so look on this one to get the Zoom link for Friday nights,
yeah, the
correct?
one this one that here right now, the one where Stephen and I meet every week. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay. So this one won't change.
yeah.
Sorry. I'm new. I'm new to all this meetup stuff.
And next week we start our huge HP Lovecraft exploration. That'll go
Yeah.
for I think a year or two. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do everything that's out there, I think.
Okay. I'm going to learn so much. It's going to be great.
And we've done 1984, the graphic novel adaptation. We did
We
that like 3 years ago. If you're at all interested, we have a list of everything we've done over the last 4 years. If you want to know, probably just a lot of titles you've never heard of, but we have done 1984. There is a Brave New World adaptation. We've never done that one, but we got a lot to get through.
God, that was sad.
Oh, Brave New World.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can still remember the ending of it. I like read it,
Yeah.
God, how long ago? Over 50 years ago.
My
And
son had
yeah,
explained what was going on at the end. I was like, what the hell is happening? And he's like, this. And I was like, that's horrible.
they actually made a mini series of it in the 70s or 80s, late 70s, I think. It got lost. And
Yeah, I want to listen to it again, man. Like that Savage just went crazy with all the weirdos. He couldn't handle it. He was like, "You guys are fucking nuts."
another good dystopia, although I'm not sure I like the book as much. I did like the film version of it, was Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, well, that was
Or-
a world in which books were banned. And
Oh,
so people secretly read books and stuff like that. And all the houses were fireproof. So the fire department's job was to go around and, like secret police, discover the books and burn them. And the 1966 one, I haven't seen the remake, but the 1966 one it's just so brilliant.
it's
There's a
happening.
brilliant scene where, the commander of the firemen, he knows his underling is reading books. And he knows he's done it himself. Like O'Brien in 1984, he had strayed, but the party had caught him and taken him back. And so this technique was employed in 1984, and the commander's going, they find a secret library. He hasn't seen a secret library in 30 years, and so this is the only place that you see in the movie which is just wall-to-wall books. He's going, oh, it's all mine, Montag. I can burn a lot of it. And he knows Montag's starting to read books. He's been stealing them away and starting to read them. He's going around, it's all nonsense. All these philosophers, all this, they're all. And the thing is, you suddenly realise he's commenting on all the books that the leader of the firemen had strayed himself and had read the books and then been rehabilitated as a book hater. It's an absolutely brilliant scene. It's on YouTube. I could dig it out actually.
Yeah. Yeah, the crime of speaking accurate history.
Yeah, well, it's like the slavery that people don't realise that the ordinary working person at the time of slavery, it was people who were free were living at the level of slaves anyway. It was if you're in the servant classes, if you're in the servile class, you're down the bottom of society.
Right.
You weren't getting a good deal.
No.
And modern people don't understand that. They think that the free, poor, and the slaves were so vastly different. And yeah, that's partly true. But the free poor worked like slaves as well. It was a world in which was out to extract every last ounce of juice out of you if they could, which I suppose they want to get back to.
Yeah. Yeah. Slavery isn't really a new concept. I mean, every civilization
online accounting that lets you
has had slaves, and I don't understand why people are so obsessed with clinging to the most recent.
Well, they think it was a white man's invention.
Yeah, I know, but white men actually stopped it. So why don't they shut the hell up?
Well, actually, the thing was Christian Europe had lost uh, the skills in chattel slavery. They had serfdom, but when the Spanish and the Portuguese went to America, they needed lots of slaves to work the plantation, and they had no skill in it. And the people that taught them the skills of mass slavery were the Arabs. And people don't realise that the biggest slavers in history were probably still are the Arabs and always were. They were the ones that were most skilled in it. And
Right.
you have to be skilled in dealing with chattel slaves. It's like running your store. You have to know a lot of stuff to do it properly.
Right. Right. You could be good
But
at your job as a slaver, or you can be bad at your job as a slaver, just like any other job, right? I usually feel like shut up about it.
well, yeah, it's a bit extreme that they're reviving history. And this, when I was looking at, the historical role of the Christian church, when the Christian church converted a region of Europe to slavery, they had this culture of like feuds, like the Hatfield and the McCoys, keeping a feud going for all time. And the Christian church would come along and say, anything that's old, you have these old feuds with people, they're pointless. You're just keeping alive something which has no requirement to be kept alive. And people have revived it. What the Christian church would say, no, you forget old animosities. Okay, you've got a current animosity, you're going to need to work through it, fair enough. But why are you keeping old animosities going, which really, the basis of which died a long time ago, but now they're doing it. They're reviving old hatreds. They're dividing people when it doesn't really add up to anything that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
They're devolving everybody into these little groups which are against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it there. It's quite interesting. I put it in the chat. So that's a little YouTube which shows this really brilliant scene from Fahrenheit 451.
All right, I'll check it out. Thanks.
I can only say at the end of the day, I hope there is a God, because if we're merely the descendants of apes and we fell out of a tree, there's a lot of hard mental work you have to do being human, and if there's a God, it might make it worthwhile. But I
Yeah.
tend to just have a supernatural belief myself. I'm a Platonist. I don't sort of believe in the idea of the Christian idea of a God. I sort of go with Plato's ideas. He sort of believed there was this being called the One, which didn't intervene in our life, and he had beneath that the being he called the demiurge or the architect, which built the universe, and then the personal gods were below them. That's sort of my belief system, so I don't sort of go with the standard Christian theory. Though I study Christianity, I find it interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think as long as you're not teaching kids that there's omnipotent beings that can be channeled through men and that some men are holy, that's where I think the ethical issues come in.
People that set themselves up as gods.
Yeah. When people say I'm channeling this almighty power and what I say is coming directly from this almighty power, and that makes people virtuous beyond criticism, is dangerous.
Yeah, I was looking at one of Jordan Peterson's. Yeah, he said, in his opinion, that that comes under the line of taking God's name in vain. He said, when you use God for your own selfish purposes, you're breaking that commandment in his way of viewing things. So
Yeah.
this is what these people are doing. They're taking this concept of God and religion and just feathering their own nest, everything which gives them power.
Right. Yeah, like I was saying before, people will co-opt all kinds of ideas and things to for their own opportunistic gains.
Well, they use the term appropriate these days, and it's actually very true in the sense that people, well, I remember one philosopher, Max Stirner, he was an atheist, and he complained to Feuerbach. Feuerbach created modern atheist humanism, and Stirner made such a brilliant comment. He said, "Okay, we got rid of the old God. Why are you trying to appropriate my humanity and raise it as a God above me?" And it's something I could have never thought of, but it's just such a brilliant comment he made, that this is what they're doing now. They're creating the human standard, their own human standard, and raising it above everybody as a God and saying, this is what you must be or you're a failure.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing. That's the thing always with the cults is if you don't do this, there's something wrong with you. Your fault, you're flawed, you're incapable of understanding, you're stunted emotionally or stunted intellectually if you can't grasp these concepts or if you don't have the emotional bandwidth to let this into your heart, there's something wrong with you. That's what they always say, every single one of them. If you question anything, it's like all of a sudden uh they just feel sorry for you. That's their whole thing. They feel really sorry for
It's a
me.
carrot and the stick, I guess.
Like
They
you can't.
have rewards and they have punishments.
Yeah, I'm like you can feel sorry for me if you want, but
Anyway, Amy, it's been great. Yeah, but I've got to move on. I've got other
yeah,
meetings to go to.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed everything. I appreciate it. And I hope I'll be able to navigate my way back here next Friday.
Hmm. That'd be great. Yeah. And if you have any suggestions that you'd like to cover, lay them on me. We'll see
Okay,
what we can do. Yeah, in
cool.
weeks to come.
All right. Well,
Cool.
hope
Okay, thanks,
see you.
David. I'll see you at the Millennium and Microcosm group, I suppose, if Rick shows up.
Right, right. Okay.
Okay, great meeting you, Amy, and see you later,
Bye.
David.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.